And welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of leadership and organizational culture. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers. Together, we're here to guide you on a journey of personal and professional growth. Every week, we bring you insights, stories, and strategies to help you and your company thrive in today's dynamic world.
So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or just eager to make a positive impact, you are in the right place. Let's jump right into today's show and champion a culture of purpose and passion. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. What's up, man?
What's up? Welcome to Champion Your Culture.
It's funny because before the show starts, we're always just like getting all the stuff out. And then it's like right when it goes live, we're like, what's up, everybody? Proper preparation.
There should be, we should release some of the pre-footage.
Oh, God, no. Where we're running around.
We're eating candy bars, telling ourselves that we're going to go sugarless for the next a couple of weeks, but it never happens.
Never happens. No, because it always feels like Monday rolls around and it's another opportunity to eat new candy.
Yeah. It doesn't help. Our problem is that when we have our networking events and things of that nature, we always try to have a little bit of something. We have the good bars for culture of good.
Yep.
And there's a ton of just horrible temptation in the corner. Temptation is usually always in the corner, or it leads you to have to stand in the corner. Right? Is that what it is? There's temptation in it. Is there a song? If not, we should have a song called "The Temptation in the Corner."
Yeah, or just call it "Standing in the Corner" because that was me.
Yeah,
man.
Because there would be some.
How many times was you just looking at two walls?
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
I probably stood in the corner more than I actually stood in the classroom.
Literally at school, and then you get home and get in trouble, and it's like double trouble.
On our topic today about conflict, there was always conflict in my house. Yeah. Whether I did it right or wrong, there was always some type of repercussion. Like it was like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Right. That was what the famous saying of the household by Deborah Beasley. But one of the things when it came to standing in the corner, my mom got really creative. And I don't know if anybody's listening. It probably needs to be brought back.
Yeah,
I think there's a few things that should be brought back. I think there should be discipline. Like physical discipline, because the palm print in the back of my head, it may have worked. I don't know how much sense it knocked out of me.
That's good, man.
Maybe not. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's skip next one. Let's skip physical abuse as discipline.
So the second one, this is physical abuse.
More like punishment.
It was physical abuse, but it was also a way of working out.
Yeah.
So when I used to standing in the corner after so long, you do it. It means nothing. Like you just master it, right?
Right.
You start thinking about things that you were going to be doing after you get in the corner. What my mom then took to the next level was telephone books. You remember the old Indiana, the yellow pages?
Yeah.
I used to have to hold them.
What?
Like this. And dude, that's why I was, I was strong. I was holding freaking everybody's number in my hand. And then it got like, this was easy because then it was like, hold them up here.
Goodness,
right?
Man.
And then it was like, spread your legs. It was pretty cool and intense. I think I should bring that workout back. Yeah, everybody
maybe the workout, but I don't love the idea of like working out as part of discipline, because then we associate getting in trouble with working out, and therefore going to the gym feels like you're in trouble, man. Which honestly, when I go to the gym, I do feel like I'm in trouble. Yeah. So okay, I get it. We're not encouraging physical punishment. We're not encouraging you to beat your kids, or your significant others, or your employees. Or your employees,
it's all love here.
Coworkers,
it's all love,
for sure.
But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Joking.
Sometimes in your head when you're at work and you're feeling the tension of what conflict is,
you think about those things.
Yeah. So we had a time conflict and had to move from Mondays to Tuesdays. Before our show was on Wednesdays. So we're kind of like the show where you got to dance and be there for it, but also you can listen anytime on Spotify. So again, I just want to thank everybody, because I know sometimes it gets difficult to schedule being with us live, and we appreciate you jumping on with us. We got a really great show today. But I wanted to hear from you, George. How was your weekend, kind of 420 and all that? That happened on Saturday.
Saturday. So I mean, I've had it was a long week. I was in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
For Work Human Live conference, a really great conference. I met Issa Rae
cool.
and Baratuni.
Nice.
And Baratune, lovely actors, writers, black actors, writers that are doing great jobs. She was just in the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
As well as what was the other one? I'm blank. American.
The with the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. American Made or no, not
American. I'll think about it.
I know what it is.
I'll think about it.
I got it.
And so was able to go there last week as well. While I was in Austin, Texas, I was getting all these notifications on my Citizen app.
American Fiction.
Yep. Thank you. And they found a couple of bodies in the river there in Austin, Texas. I was a little worried. There was actually,
while you were there.
Yeah, I got a notification when I got on the airplane that there was a potential serial killer there. So safety to all
those. Did you ever find them?
I don't know.
When did you leave?
You know what's funny is like, man, if this stops
in the river and I left as fast as I could. Did they ever find the serial killer? No, actually, no. Nope. Actually, no.
And I'm back in Indianapolis.
That's wild. Yeah.
I was only in the conference and the barbecue spot outside of the conference.
Yeah.
And then you may have found me playing drums on 6th Street. It was fun. Shout out to the piano bar there.
That's cool.
And the crew there. But then I came home for a few days. And then I went to Chicago Friday.
Yeah.
Met up with some friends, went to an event there, and then drove over. It just so happened it was, Milwaukee's only like an hour and a half or so.
Right.
So I was like, man, what could happen in Milwaukee on a Saturday?
Yeah.
And our Indiana Pacers showed up in the second half for the Bucks and Pacers game.
Yeah.
We were there physically.
Yeah.
But probably not mentally. We got a young group.
Yeah.
That's developing.
It's going to take a second, but we won 4 out of the 5 games through the season.
Yeah, but it's the regular season is different than postseason.
Yeah, but they didn't
back in the day, our
Giannis,
Pacers,
did they?
No, but they did. They only missed. I think he only missed one of those 5 games.
Well, no, I'm talking about in
last Saturday didn't have them.
Interesting.
And I think they play a little bit better. It's crazy how I'm not saying that they're better off without Giannis. He's once in a lifetime. He's a Sean Kipp type dominant player version. Right. Mm-hmm. In the paint.
I would say Akeem Olajuwon.
He's not that great. I wouldn't push that. That's whoa. Pause that. He's not there yet. He's not there.
Okay, he's a Kemp.
He's a dominant player with
Dominic
developing developing jump shot. I ain't hating on him at all. I would take him on my team.
Oh yeah, without
but
a doubt.
He's not. He's a Robin in my opinion.
Yeah.
He needs a Batman.
Yeah.
And they got Dame over there who obviously put up 35 points in the first half. He didn't score in the second half. He didn't have to because the lead was there. But credit that some to the defensive scheme. He missed all his shots. Obviously, he had more turnovers and fouls. I'm looking at the bright side of the Pacers game there. But it was a different game in the second half. We actually showed up, but to our credit, we have a young team. Outside of Miles Turner, maybe Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of playoff experience time. Mm-hmm. And so you can tell that in some of the shots that were going. They built me a new house there if I wanted to go. With some of the shots that was bringing out.
Yeah.
But I think once we got composed mentally, the game was more mental.
Isn't that true though? That the game is a lot of it is mental. That's what
because at that point you have this. You're obviously there because you have the skill set.
Yeah.
To get to the next level. That's why everybody breathes off of Jordan. They breathe off of this Kobe Bryant with the mama mentality, that killer instinct.
Yeah.
It's developed. Some people now naturally may have it.
Yeah.
But I think I would even say they don't naturally have it. They've been exposed to life circumstances that have exposed and trained
develop that
and develop that. Yeah. Like, are we natural leaders or have we developed that because of the experiences in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a long way to go. I do expect us to come out tonight 114 to 104 is a 10-point spread. Nice. I think we come out and we take game 2.
Okay.
If not,
should I bet some money on it?
If not, there probably is going to be a gentleman's sweep. I think we'll get 1 at home or 2. But we got to win. They did what they were supposed to do. Milwaukee protected their house.
Yeah.
It was loud as I don't know what.
Yeah.
Some illegal loudness.
Yeah.
Where, that's NBA's doing to make sure people follow the rules when it comes to what should be mic and not mic. Our drum line, we created a masterpiece. Like Atlanta has a drum line now. Milwaukee has a drum line now.
Yeah.
Indiana, we're very by the book.
Yeah.
So we don't mic during them, but their drum line was mic'd and they played through everything.
Oh, geez.
Typically, you're not supposed to play when the
probably sound like a high school auditorium the whole time. Just chaos.
It's probably top two in my. It's probably top two, and I've been to a few dozen, maybe a couple dozen and a half arenas.
Yeah,
and it's probably top 2, 3 best arenas I've been.
That's
to.
cool, man.
It's cool.
Hey, if you're ever in Indiana, look us up.
Yep.
Because especially if you're coming to the games, definitely George will be there.
Yeah.
Whether I'm there or not is debatable.
Yeah. It depends on how good it is outside. Yeah, I try to invite you to the last game. It's like, man, that's too beautiful. I'm not going inside when it looks this. Which in Indiana,
it was an earlier game, and it was like the day was like 80 degrees and sunny, and I'm like, I'm not gonna stand inside and watch basketball. I would rather watch some kids play basketball outside in the sun than to go to the NBA game indoors.
For sure.
When it's nice out. When it's nice out.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day.
Big shout out to the Pacers because it's fun just to have a team that's winning.
Yeah.
And we can carry that into work too when you think about it, even in the sense of what you were talking about with like mentality and how in order to get from like your skills can only get you so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think your skills can get you to a certain point, but after that, a lot of the mentality and what it takes to get to that next level. I think there's a book, I'll have to look it up, and I'm trying to remember who wrote it. And it was What Got Me Here Won't Get Me There. And okay, here it is. And it is written by Marshall Goldsmith, actually. Marshall Goldsmith is the one that the introduction for Build a Culture Good book. Yep. And so Marshall Goldsmith wrote, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that's kind of the idea, right? What got you here is skill. What gets you there is mentality. I always talk about that your gift can take you further than your character can keep you. So we talk about like you have gifts and skills and abilities that can get you pretty far in life and pretty far in business. But at some point, you have to have character.
Yep.
You have to have a different mentality. You have to have integrity, right? There's a level that gets you to a new place that you have to embrace that new behavior. And I think when we're talking about what we're talking about here within conflict, the first thing that we want to do with conflict is to take it out of the arena of it's you against me and get it into an arena where we're fighting for each other, not against each other. Because ultimately, what you just said about a winning team, it's exciting.
Right.
And I'll be far more excited going into a workplace where I feel like I'm part of a team that's supportive, that's not void of conflict. It's not conflict at first, but it's able to address conflict at a different level because of the connection we have, the relationship that we have.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always work. If I can have a really good relationship with you, but if I'm really bad at conflict, it can actually hinder us from having an ongoing long-term relationship just because I'm not good at conflict. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that was experience. You know, you definitely can. I feel like I've gotten a lot better. Some people say I've changed too much. They prefer the non-conflict, the confrontational George. Because if you don't balance that, the healthy way, obviously, there's a healthy way of dealing with those that. Where when I first learned how to healthy conflict, and really walk into that, not just for people that I had the conflict with, but also understanding as we talk about leadership, leading yourself, what's healthy for you and how you handle the conflict. That's where I discovered my 24-36 hour rule.
Yeah.
Right. 24-36 is where if something bothers me, instead of putting on the emotion that I'm feeling, if it's frustration, right, anger, whatever it may be, I take that 24-36. If I feel that same 24-36 hours later, I need to deal with it, right? But I need to deal with it once I understand the outcomes that I desire. Like, why do I feel this way? Right? Asking those questions. And I know we're going to get into that in the conversation, but I remember those days where dealing with conflict was silent.
Yeah.
it was silent dealings where I dealt with not necessarily with Brian, who may have frustrated me or did something that that I did not agree with, whether it's somebody else or affecting me personally. It was just kind of a silent, I moved on, I cut you off, or I shut you down for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you just don't talk, I don't respond to you.
Yeah.
Until whatever that wound was, scabbed up. Right? It doesn't necessarily heal properly.
Deal with the person.
Deal with the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so those are all the things. And I know that there's a lot of people that listen to us today. You may be in those situations. We want to encourage you. There's a healthy way to do that. Sometimes it takes time, and it's okay.
Yeah.
To say, hey, we're not saying, hey, do this right now and apply it, because there's something that you have to really receive for yourself. For me, I had to deal with personal conflict before I can learn how to deal with somebody else's. Where it was a combination. It goes through that showing yourself grace mentality and trusting yourself and believing and loving yourself enough to be healthy for yourself. And so, this is an issue.
Yeah.
And dealing with that internally. A lot of people think conflict is always 2 or 3 people or more. Sometimes the conflict is in the mirror.
Yeah.
And there's conversations we have.
That sometimes can carry over into our relationships. If we have internal conflict within ourselves and we're constantly battling internally, then when we get into scenarios where other people might have their own personal agendas, right? And we see this in work quite a bit, right? Where conflict isn't always like battling. It doesn't have to be anger. It doesn't have to be war against somebody. Conflict is a process of resolution. It's a part of the resolution of things. When we think about conflict, we have to get that idea of like watching CNN or Fox News. I'm saying like the conflict in Gaza. That's a different type, of conversation. We're at work. What conflict usually stems many times from is some type of personal agenda or personal idea or someone's opinion that's not being heard, or somebody feels like they have the right way to do something and someone else isn't doing it that way, and that creates this, this moment where we have the opportunity for that conflict to be a recognition that there's resolution. But if all we do is get stuck in the midst of they're wrong and I'm right, or it's their agenda against my agenda, you know what I'm saying? And it's almost like that we have that us against me against you, or me against them. And to your point, at times is me against me, because that internal conflict doesn't allow me to approach you in a way where we can resolve this, because I'm in conflict internally and conflict internally. Then we're 2 conflicts coming together. You know what I'm saying?
And that can become detrimental, right?
Yeah.
To any team, any organization.
Yeah.
If it's not resolved properly.
Yeah.
And I think that's how do you create the culture of dealing with conflict? How do you create that open? We talk about open forward, feedback. We talk about that constructive forward versus criticism, conflict. But dealing with the conflict in the workplace could be a beautiful thing. Right? It's all about perspectives, and you have opened my eyes out to those things. I used to look at change in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all about the perspective that you see. People, if you have a negative perception of what conflict is, based upon my leader, there's confrontation, conflict, it always goes into a negative. It's really about leadership, how we lead people to believe what change is, what conflict is. And
to start with, so that we know what to deal with. Like, I'm not going to take a BB gun to a big conflict. I need to even know what conflict is to begin with, to your point, like to know that, we have the opportunity to allow some of these things that would have normally created a negative emotion. If it's a healthy relationship, it affords us the opportunity to recognize, oh, this is a moment for us to come together and work through this. But if we're not mature in our sense of who we are, if we're not sure of ourselves, then when we get into conflict, we're constantly trying to prove ourselves. And this is a tough conversation, because in work you don't want to lose many of the arguments, or ego gets involved. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What do people perceive about me? What will people perceive if I allow this person to win in the midst of all of this? There's a whole lot around that. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear around work, and so within people are avoiding conflict because they're avoiding being vulnerable many times because of the uncertainty with work, layoffs. People have that in the back of their mind all the time. Sometimes you just rather, as you're talking about, just kind of let it scab over. The problem is, the more we do that, the more callous we become to others.
Yeah.
The more hard our heart becomes. We can't no longer we cease to be able to bring ourselves. We just can't do it.
Right.
Like if I bring my soul to work, my soul is going to get into some conflict.
Right.
There's going to be moments where there's disagreement. There are going to be moments where we don't align.
Yeah.
Right. There are going to be moments where your perspective and my perspective are different. And in some instances, certainly, like let's make a decision together, and we've done that. Culture of good. And there's other times I'm like, I really feel like we should do it this way. There's other times you're like, I really feel, and if I hear your voice, it's like, it's not just like, this is what I think. It's like, I really believe this. And it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then my mind is not to say, well, let me prove that I'm right. Because sometimes we can spend so much time trying to prove that we're right and make a point that we never get to the point together, where we never come to a resolution together. We have to get beyond our own ego and beyond our own, many times our own job title. Because I've seen some leaders deal with conflict like this. Tough shit.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, that's one way of doing it.
Yep.
You know, and it's also that is a way to build calluses with your team members so they become hard toward you. Then what you have is you have a leader that's created an environment where they make decisions and say, "This is what I want," and then once they leave the room, everybody just talks about how crazy they're not really leading anybody. They're just
yeah, yeah. You said a word multiple times, and this is key number one, moment number one of today's podcast. I'm sure we have many of them, but you call them moments.
Yeah,
I think that's so critical. It reminds me of Deion Sanders. He always says, "I don't have bad days.
Yeah.
I have bad moments.
Yeah.
I may be conflicted with a certain thing, but maybe an hour, but I refuse to say I've had a bad day."
I don't like this too much to something.
Yep. Well, it just takes over. But if we think about it, sometimes we allow those moments to really take over. Now there are some things, right? There's life, there's like uncertainty, there's tragedies, there's traumatic experiences that you have.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a trivial conflict at work or difference, right, where you take in what it is, deal with it accordingly. I'm going to talk about how to deal with or manage a conflict within the workplace. We're going to get into that with some of these concepts I'm excited about learning myself a bit more. We kind of talked about the last few days. This has been a conversational topic for the last 3 weeks. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. But you got 4 steps here, 4 that we're going to break down. Can you elaborate, kind of introduce a little bit of what this is and how it can be used, especially in the workplace?
Yeah, and I just want to kind of give a background in terms of when I was introduced to Government Institute. So I certified through Lark Song Coaching Academy out of Marion, Indiana. Check it out. Shout out to Lark Song and Megan and Gilmore and all the amazing just team there that helps to grow a culture of coaching that I've seen is probably the best representation of leadership in terms of people skills, and a big part of what was introduced through Lark Song to me in the coaching academy that I went through. My cohort was this idea of the 4 horsemen. And the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, in terms of as it pertains to conflict, is something that was introduced to the Gottman Institute. The Gottman Institute focuses primarily over the decades on marital relationships. partnerships in terms of that type of more of a romantic connection. But what's interesting, Megan's Luxong Coaching Academy and the work that I learned there is that the four horsemen and that idea is really how we all approach conflict in four different ways.
Mhm.
And it can summarize very unhealthy ways of approaching conflict, but also it gives us the opportunity to look at, okay, what is the healthy side, right? We know that our strengths have weaknesses, right?
Right.
If my strength is ideology and I come with ideas all the time, my weakness is going to be I probably bring too many ideas to the table and I need to chill out, right? So each one of these has an initial unhealthy approach to conflict, or just really, I would say not even unhealthy at the onset. It's just a natural way. Each of this kind of lean, what I've learned is lean in the direction of one of these four when we're in conflict with people. And that can be different with our spouse, it could be different at work, but generally we kind of are creatures of habit within 40. So I'm going to read the four, I'll put it up on the screen, and then we're going to break it down over time. So if you're watching, do a screenshot. We'll put this out later as well. I grabbed this particular image off of Brene Brown's website. So I just give a shout out. But this is actually from the Gottman, so she teaches this as well. So four horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships and how to stop them with our antidotes. Right. So the first is criticism. The second is contempt.
Mm-hmm.
The third horseman is defensiveness. And the fourth horseman is stonewalling. So I'll give a little bit of a description for each of these. And maybe you take a moment to kind of think through, because you shared a little bit earlier about how you have historically approached some of the conflicts. So let's just talk through this. We know what criticism is, right? It's attacking somebody's character or their personality rather than addressing the specific behavior, right? So if I'm at work and we're working together and I feel conflict because maybe you're not getting work done at a certain time, right? And I start criticizing you, you're a procrastinator, right? Why are you such a procrastinator? You know?
Yeah.
That's one of the horsemen, right? So it's almost like focusing on the behavior, or rather focusing on the person.
Yeah.
And attacking them in a critical way rather than looking for what is the behavior that actually needs to be addressed. The second thing is contempt. So the most destructive way or the most destructive path in terms of the four horsemen involves a feeling of superiority over the person or disdain.
Yeah.
Right? People get this at work because they have authority or position or title. They feel superiority. So when it comes to conflict, they're just like, like disdain. I'm not dealing with you today. Many times it can be like hostile humor or mockery or sarcasm. You can feel that from somebody at work. And it's like this feeling of contempt. What I learned from the Gottman Institute, not only was I introduced to this through coaching, but Katarina's marital therapist introduced the Gottman process to us. Well, so I had to learn a lot about myself. So I'm going to talk about me too. I'm actually going to talk about you. Yeah. George, let's find out how you deal with conflict. So contempt, what I learned is that once we get to a place of contempt in our marriage, that's a place almost not of no return, but it's a marker of potential kind of a crack or a fault line in a relationship. Contempt is not where we want to be, where we don't have any interest in working toward resolution.
Yeah.
Defensiveness, that's me to start. I start with defensiveness because I'm not
perfect.
Well, yeah, exactly. How could you assume I did anything wrong, right? But reacting with defensiveness when we feel attacked when there's conflict. You know what I'm saying? And so it often leads to the cycle of blame. And when we say cycle, it's much like a washer. You know, we're in a cycle and it's just a game and we're going back and forth. And an example of that, it's like, it's not my fault. You're the one that messed up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or like pushing the blame off to somebody else or, coming up with, I didn't do that or, trying to just kind of defend yourself right from the beginning. That's what I start doing right away. And then I move into the next one, which is stonewalling.
Oh boy.
I don't even think we need to explain this one, but it involves withdrawing from interaction. It involves like shutting down communication. Right? We turn off the on air button. We're no longer on air.
I'm a stonewaller.
Stonewaller, right. It often occurs in response to being overwhelmed or flooded with emotion. So when we're flooded, you think about it, we want to build it down. And many times we need to take some time. We'll talk about how to deal with each of these, but within stonewalling, we can kind of go back from stonewalling. Within stonewalling, you need to take a break.
Yeah.
So many times when you need to take a break, you feel like you're shutting down. You stay in shutdown mode rather than the path toward a healthy way is saying, I'm not going to stonewall, but I'm going to give myself space to collect my emotions, to collect my thoughts, because you may not be somebody that wants to get right in the midst of the conflict with the person in the moment. And if the person that you're in conflict with knows this about you, it's their role to give you that space.
Yeah.
But when the person doesn't know that this is what you do, and you not giving you the space to do it in a healthy way where you can take breaks and not an avoidance of anything, not a shutdown, but a pause and a break.
Yeah.
But you can have that. That's where this communication comes in, and that's what was really helpful with Qatar and I within our marriage. But I see this within work as well. It's really important to be able to understand how I deal with conflict, and what we need from each other. Because if defensive comes up at me, the worst thing for you to do is say, look, you're being defensive, because what's that? Criticism. You see what I'm saying? You're focused on me. You're being defensive rather than this is what I hear from you. How can we work through this together?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's a more adult way of dealing with what many times feels like a very childish process. We've never really been taught how to do this.
Yeah. I think it goes on to saying this is very important, and I'm gonna bring a different perspective so that we can really dig into this. When it comes to conflict, for that defensive person or the stonewaller, for me, and I'll speak as a stonewaller. You can come from the defensive side, and we can kind of match up with.
Yeah.
Right. But from a stonewaller perception, the reason why and I'll say I because I don't want to speak for everybody, but reasons why stonewalling beginning for me is because the outcome is always run into the defensive. Right.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose of wasting my time when I already know the solution?
Yeah.
Or the outcome.
So which is basically you just need to admit that you're
right.
Because you felt like no matter what you try to do, your perspective isn't going to be heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you just accept whenever there's conflict, you just accept the reality that there's not going to be any outcome that's going to feed. Right? And it doesn't necessarily, for one, that I can say is it's all conflict for me, all stonewalling is not because I'm right.
Yeah.
I may have misunderstood.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it, right? Yeah. But having that conversation to be understood, to understand why, but also be acknowledged that, hey, I understand, for instance, Ryan, you offended.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, George, I'm sorry you felt this way.
Yeah.
This is what I did. This is why I did. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
Having that understanding, it still doesn't feel good for a stonewaller.
Yeah.
To say, man, I got up and frustrated about something that was acknowledged.
And also, how can we do this differently next time? How can we do this differently? How can we?
Yeah.
So that's the difference. A lot of times we're using I and you, and I like the I more than the you. Anytime you're in conflict and you're using you a lot, you're in attack mode. Many times it's critical. Many times it's defensiveness. But the we want to within conflict get from a place where we say I until we can say we. Anytime we're saying you, we're staying out of I and we, and therefore we're not going to be able to resolve that. But I agree with you. The question I would have for you is what do you get out of walling? that is a reward for you?
I mean, typically, I don't think there's a reward in stonewalling because what happens is that you typically, I relate it to a trash can that's overflowing, right? You keep all these small because you don't deal with it. Right?
Sure, somehow you're getting an instant reward because you were saying, right,
you move past.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. So that's what I mean. When we can get to the reward, then we can say, okay, if that's what I want, that's okay. There are going to be moments where it's not worth getting into a deep conflict to resolve something. Sometimes we have to also set boundaries. Okay. So I just want to say this: when we have toxic people in our lives, we're not talking about how to deal with toxic people today.
Yeah.
When we talk about how to deal with toxic leaders, that's not conflict. That's a lack of boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. And what boundaries are the distance that I can love you and myself at the same time. That's what a boundary is. That's what needs to be set up in terms of what we're talking about with toxic leadership. So I don't want our listeners to hear this and think, okay, I've got a really toxic leader, so I should never shut down, right? You know what I mean? Or never be critical, or the question is what's coming up in us when we're in conflict within us. That person didn't put it in us. What comes up in us in conflict was in us before we were in it. So we have to think in terms of like, what am I gaining out of stonewalling, or what am I getting out of being defensive? So for me, the reward of defensiveness is I feel like I can prove that I'm not who they said I was, or I am better than they're painting the picture of who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like that for me, like you learn to stonewall throughout life, and I learned to be defensive. I think the style of discipline and punishment within church and Christianity, for me, growing up, taught me how to be defensive. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that those lessons were learned early on. It enabled me to paint a pretty rosy picture of myself throughout life. You know what I'm saying? So that was a reward for me. You know?
Yeah.
So Ryan, the company I started is called The Culture of Good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like painting a picture. So this for me. Let's look at contempt, because in a relationship, when I start contempt toward you, that's bad. You know what I'm saying? That's really unhealthy, because contempt basically means I've kind of given up on this. I really care. You know what I'm saying? And within that space, it's really important to cultivate empathy and respect for the other person, and to counteract that contemptuous kind of attitude toward them, to really be able to have some empathy. I think when we think about leaders that lead with empathy, and all the studies, it's things we've been talking about forever, but all the studies show the greatest skills that CEOs, owners, leaders can have at this point are people, because they're leading people. You know, empathy, an empathetic leader, or an empathetic human being, is someone that is going to be able to counter that contempt when it comes to conflict.
Right.
And I think that's a really important place to be, whether it be a relationship outside of work or in work, and then obviously last with the criticism.
Yeah.
It's taking it off of like, George, you're this. Why are you so this? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, so let's get into some of the lessons. We're a little bit over halfway through our podcast, and I'm always, I want to make sure our listeners walk away with this is how I can handle conflict, but also acknowledging, which of the four horsemen are you?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there's some where I feel like we can. You're defensive. I'm a stonewaller. There's people that are, criticizers out there. There's some contempt people out there. And some people may say, hey, I'm a blend of a little bit of everything. It just depends on the person, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Some people is just kind of snowballs. People are like, you don't even know me. And I'll get defensive about that. If you don't know me, and you're just assuming from the shape of the stance that I am, right? Then you're gonna get a defensive George.
Yeah.
Or used to. Not too defensive.
Maybe after
you're For 2 reasons. One, I just don't care about what you say about me anymore. If it doesn't impact 3 things, if it doesn't impact my money, my peace, what you think about me.
Yeah.
Those are things I need right there. I need family, I need peace, and
money.
And money.
Right.
No money, no honey.
Yeah, right.
Shut up.
Yeah.
But some lesson style, we call them lesson style notes, but some takeaways that as we're dealing with conflict. Again, as you said, this is not toxic leadership.
Right.
It's just conflict.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a leader
stuff
or another team member on your in your workplace, things that you can do to take away, you identify who you are, how to deal with this, but also just naturally dealing with the conflict that you may come across. We're talking about, and you always say, recognize the signs.
Well, that's the first thing that you're talking about is you got to recognize.
You better recognize.
You better recognize. I say it like this: you got to get a checkup, neck up.
Check up, neck up.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Check yourself
before you wreck yourself. I was wondering when the song was going to come in. It's the longest we've gone
without singing again.
1 minute without having a song.
It is though, right? You got to check yourself. Yeah. That's step 1 in conflict. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Within conflict, anytime it doesn't work out well, you wreck it yourself. I think take responsibility and say, not necessarily like it's all your fault, but take responsibility and say, right, at least recognition to your point of like, what do I lean more toward? We could do this within specific spaces that we find ourselves in, be it work or home, like we're talking about. It doesn't mean that we stonewall everywhere with every relationship. We might be defensive at work, and we might stonewall with our spouse, and not stonewall with anybody else. It could just be the dynamic of our relationship too. And so we have to ask ourselves now again, is this working for me?
Yeah.
And not only has this worked, but is this working for me? Is this going to work for where I want to be? Right? Where are we headed together, you and me? Where is that relationship, myself and that person? And when conflict arises, how do we see or like recognize it? Am I stonewalling right now? And the more I learned and studied these people, the more I saw it coming up in myself. You know, I was like, I could smell the horse coming from a distance, man. Yeah. I was like, okay, here it comes. And at first, it felt like the defensiveness was even worse because Qatar didn't know what she was doing either. So we were like, you know, trying to point out each other's like, you know, that you being that horseman. Like that's the worst thing to do in a relationship. Like, do not go home.
Here comes a defender.
Yeah.
Trotting on your horse.
Yeah. There you are being critical again. Like, what are you talking about? You're the critical. You're critical. You're critical. It's like everybody's like has to take a moment, pause. You wreck yourself, wreck what's going on, and be willing to take a pause, your thought, because they're scattered. A lot of times we're reaching and grabbing straws, and we're not really in a sense of control of what's happening internally. When there's a point when there's conflict internally, it's going to come out. But whatever's in us out of us. There's no way
overflows, right?
Yeah, there's no way to bottle itself.
Yeah. I think that's where you find I always say, I mentioned the whole trash can analogy. For me as a stonewaller, it's like throwing trash, whether you ball it all the way up or just let it in there. If you don't pick up the trash, eventually it's going to overflow. I think of that overflowing for me, and I wasn't necessarily angry type. My overflowing was like I went from just stonewalling you to I'll just stonewall everybody. Because you, now everybody, because when they ask me why am I this way, right. They can deal with the issue. They can deal with the conflict. Bring their resolution. Because I was never before in my universe, I was never the approach to conflict. If you came to me and said, George, why are you stonewalling? There's really a sense of empathy in your voice or your demeanor, then I'll say, hey, this bothers me. Right? Because you bringing it to me shows that you care enough to acknowledge what the issue is. Right. But if your demeanor is because you know what the problem is and you want to be proven right, I have nothing to say to you. Right. But the effects of that is that it spilled out. And so if you're a George Stonewaller, right, eventually, and you'll see this. You'll see people that are so sweet and nice, and then all of a sudden, snap. You hear them raise their voice loud or rage. Right? That's because one small thing has become a bunch of small things that have never been dealt with. And eventually, that just overflows.
Yeah,
that's why people quit. Not because they didn't really love what they were doing,
right?
Or maybe even loving who some of the people they were doing with. It's because a bunch of small things never get dealt with.
Yeah,
conflict room.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about it overflowing before it overflows, you know, it does, it starts stinking. You know, like that's how you know you need to take the trash out.
Yep.
You know, if you don't think about it on schedule, like Qatar will remind me, but when I left for Boston, like 3 days in, my mother, Betty Waters, shout out to Mama Betty, uh, my favorite person on earth. Anyway, she was saying that Qatar was on the phone with her and was saying, "Man, something stinks in the kitchen." It was like 3 days after I left,
Mhm.
and she started looking around, and she finally found out, yeah, didn't take out the trash for 3 days. She's like, "Man, I need Ryan back home," you know, because it's just in a rhythm for me. I don't even think about it, but sometimes we, like, try everything we can to avoid it by spraying it with Febreze and, like, putting, baking soda over it, putting candles, and the garbage is still there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to recognize what's going on internally within ourselves first, and then showing up to work, like being able to bring our soul to work also doesn't mean we're gonna do this perfectly all the time. We're not gonna hit the mark. We're gonna get into conflict. Qatar and I get into conflicts to this day. I'll be defensive or I'll stonewall. I like the stonewalling too. I'm kind of a professional at that too. I'm bivocational.
You don't discriminate on any horseman.
No, I've been working on all my horse riding skills, brother. I've been riding these horses my whole life, you know. And man, what a mind opening thought being able to say, look, more than just how to deal with conflict. It's really a self recognition. This is self awareness. And when I'm self aware, even if the other person doesn't know how to deal with what I'm self aware, I can deal with me. I may not ever be able to deal with the other person. I always deal with me. And I think showing up, bringing our soul to work, and bring our soul to home, bring our soul to being a mom or a dad or a boss, whatever it is. When we bring our soul into that situation, being able to say, "How do I best have a healthy relationship with this person?"
Yeah.
Can I? Again, if it's toxic, maybe not. If the boundaries keep, you know, being set and they're not honored, maybe not.
Right.
But when it comes to your everyday conflict and how you deal with it on a day to day, to your point, it builds up over. Then all of a sudden it turns into like George shutting down, Ryan shutting down, or me starting to get real critical at everything at work. Have you ever noticed that? Well, that's interesting because you said it kind of grows and expands and you'd start to stonewall everybody. I've seen people get critical with one person, and all of a sudden they start getting critical about everything. And then they're critical about the whole business.
Yeah.
They're critical of every leader.
When that one thing is resolved, it's as if nothing else is. I had an employee in our retail days like that, in our Walker store. I won't mention his name. I still love him. But I will, I'll send this clip to you.
Yeah, it's like that, right? Sometimes it becomes more than how you deal with the conflict. Sometimes it becomes almost second nature to how you deal with life. You know what I'm saying? I've got a crazy shit in HR. Can I do it real quick? Kind of wrap it up. All right. So this is crazy shit in HR, brought to you by the Culture of Good, powered. This whole podcast is powered by Culture of Good. And if you want more information about that, go on to cultureofgood.com. But this is crazy shit in HR. Way too much time on Reddit. I'll have to admit that right now.
Yep.
What's the app for you?
I'll probably spend
TikTok.
No, LinkedIn is really it's changed. I've become more of a LinkedIn. I've gotten away from the drama, and it's so peaceful. I like
good
professionalism.
Yeah.
As far as outside of LinkedIn, probably TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I flip around. Sometimes.
Let's look at what my phone is. And, oh boy. Where I spend my time.
How do I do that?
Shout out to Mike Oberdick. So I had a friend. I don't even know if he's my friend. Special drinks.
Yeah,
he's like he's taking a bistro.
As much as you tried to stop him, he just kept feeding.
But him and Josh Moten, we always have this screen time. My screen time is ridiculous. It was always 12, 13 hours on screen. Yeah. And Mike's was always like 6 or 6 below, 5 below. I was like, man, that's a beautiful thing. I just didn't know. But anyway,
on there.
So you go to your settings. If you got an iPhone, you go to your settings, and then you just go to your screen time, and tell you daily average.
Oh God!
And it tell you whether or not.
Go ahead and do this.
You're up or down, 20% down.
1% down from last week, which means I beat you.
And your total hours are probably over 10, though, right?
Nope.
Oh, 5 hours. That is good.
30 minutes.
That is good.
5:30.
So then, if you click on see all apps and websites, it'll tell you. So my top messages. I'm actually shocked. Facebook. This is just today, I believe. Microsoft Office emails in my test. Then my Gmail, Safari, and then X is Facebook and X. I don't even have TikTok.
Okay, look at mine. Number 1,
TikTok. Probably because you're just scrolling real.
I'm not.
It's today. So TikTok. Now you can go
Instagram. Week.
You looking at the week?
I'm doing the week. Yeah. Yeah. Do the week. TikTok, Instagram, messages, Reddit.
So there you go.
I mean, I got Chrome in there, and I got Spotify. I don't know why Chrome's there.
Web searching.
Interesting.
Searching for Reddit. I mean, Reddit on Reddit.
Yeah. And yours is?
Messages, Snap, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. That's weird. Well, I'm always I use my computer most.
That's interesting. Anyway, check this out. So I was on Reddit. All that to say this. And for craziest shit in HR, this is a post by a car wash. I won't mention the name of the car wash. Workers. We've read a few of these, but I want you to notice what's going on. Right? It says workers needed. Please do not apply if you oversleep, have court often, do not have a babysitter every day, have to get rides to work rather than our workday begins, later than our workday begins, experience flat tires every week, have to hold a cell phone all day, or will become an expert at your job with no need to take advice after the first day. Must be able to talk and walk at the same time. Must also remember to come back to work after lunch. Should not expect to receive gold stars for being on time. If you qualify, please fill out an application. Thank you. God.
There's like people who deal with that. I think why did they do that?
They obviously have dealt with people. It's all behavioral. It's like there's no culture, so we have to focus on it. Anytime a business focuses on behavior, I know their culture is there.
Yeah.
Because I know some car washes in India. Shout out to Crew Car Wash. I've not been in their business, but when I pull up to the car wash, employees are happy. I've talked to employees. I've met with the leadership there. It's a car wash.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, okay, it's a car wash. Of course, they're going to have these kind of employees. No, not necessarily. When you have a healthy culture, you have healthy employees. Yeah. I think it's hilarious. It's like some of those are great. Must be able to walk and work at this.
You know what I respect about that? We talk about transparency.
Yeah. Please, you know,
like we these are the people. These are the behaviors that scare us. That does not qualify for the job.
Definitely not the culture.
We don't want to deal with this type of conflict.
Yeah. We're letting you know ahead of time. This will cause conflict.
These are conflicting issues.
If you run a car wash, Crew Car Wash, they kind of rock space. But anyway, I think here today, George, I think it's really important that we really focus on building the internal healthy communication of ourselves, where we have the opportunity to pause, gather ourselves in these moments, not jump right into conversations with people, or to give ourselves space to do it in a healthy way. And also, I think that's giving yourself permission,
right,
to do so. I think that's the start of healthy communication, is your internal dialogue,
right.
And then from that place, once you can get your internal dialogue and your emotions at a place where you're not showing up to fight against somebody, but given the opportunity to, go ahead. Well, what Mike Tyson, the great prophet, said, that everybody's going to get punched in the face, right? So it's like that kind of thing. Like, there are going to be moments at work where we're punched in the face, not physically, but like with the realities of relationships, dealing with people, and conflicts are going to happen. It's how we communicate to ourselves, and then how we communicate to the other person. Being able to no longer say, "You're this. This is why you messed up. This is why whatever you need to be," going to a place where we say, "This is how I feel
right
in this moment. This is what I need. How can we work together toward," right? And that takes practice.
It's a relationship, and nothing happens overnight. It's that the relationship. So you're saying, in building that healthy culture, one, I think it's important for especially stonewallers, but in general, just to make sure that you take that approach of understanding. One, you can pause.
Yeah.
That gather yourself, take the time that's needed and necessary. For me, I do that. Writing it down became easier. Writing down some of my thoughts. I'm dealing with it, especially as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, at 36, me seeing what I was frustrated with helped me realize, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Was it George? Right. Yeah. And because it's the belief of always, there's always something, whether it's critical or criticism, in the conflict. But you got to balance that. Not, one thing that I developed is, if I find fault in all I see, sometimes fault is found in me.
Yeah.
And I had to realize that. But building a healthy communication, taking that time to get yourself right, false communication, that cultural communication that we often talk about, where I'm able to give myself permission to have that feeling that I feel, but also have the peace and the continue, and it's going to be resolved.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not going to be resolved between just you and I, because there's some we're not seeing something. Sometimes that too. That's why sometimes, hey, we're not getting through this. Let's bring the perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? So that you can see where you're not seeing what I'm saying.
That's what
I understand. So let's bring some, and it's okay to bring somebody.
Absolutely.
The belief of, let's see how we handle this. If we can't handle this, and I don't want to always handle it where we just say, let's agree to this.
No.
Right?
No, that's not healthy.
Let's agree to understand what I did.
Let's agree to.
Yeah.
We might disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, understanding how do we get to across the river in disagreement? It doesn't mean we're not going to cross the river together. Let's get across the river. We don't have to be in agreement the whole time. So anyway,
you gotta move forward. And always encourage that feedback and that dialogue. When we talk about the healthy community piece, and then always, I'll let you boys.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll let Ryan, especially when it comes to communication skills and providing, and conflict resolution, communication skills. If you're looking for any of that, as always, there's two gentlemen from Indiana that connect. You can learn more.
We like to travel.
We like to travel. We like to fly high.
Happy 420 for
those partake. We appreciate everybody joining us here.
And
as always, your soda water
on Champion Your
Culture.
Thank you for tuning in to Champion Your Culture. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and inspiration for your journey in leadership and cultural development.
Building a culture good is a collective effort. If you found value in conversations today, please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on your favorite platform and share this episode with your friends and colleagues.
Your support helps us reach more people and spread the message of impactful leadership and positive cultural change. Don't forget to visit cultureofgood.com to explore how you can become a certified culture champion.
Every week, we're here to bring you insights and strategies that matter. So join us again for more empowering discussions. Let's continue to champion a culture of purpose and passion together.
Until next time, keep leading with heart and let's make a positive difference in the world. And we'll see you next week on Champion Your Culture.